Washing dishes, how one poor girl's bold request changed everything at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3 in the morning, a hollow and ominous sound echoing through the empty kitchen. The moonlight filtered in, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. It was the kind of hour when the world felt like it was holding its breath, and something strange was about to happen. That's when Maria, a girl with untamed curls and a restless heart, stood alone at the sink, staring into a pile of dirty dishes that seemed to reflect her own chaotic life. The plates gleamed with remnants of meals past, like memories tangled in grease, slipping through her fingers. With a sudden burst of courage, she made a request that would change everything. "I'll wash them," she declared, her voice barely above a whisper, but the weight of the words hung heavy in the air. It was a small act, sure, but something sparked deep inside her. Little did she know, those simple dishes were about to unravel a web of secrets that lay hidden just below the surface. The air crackled with energy, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. Suddenly, a sound jolted her, cutting through the silence. A soft tapping echoed from the darkened corner of the room. Maria's heart raced, her breathing quickening, each breath feeling like a gasp. Was it the wind? Or something otherworldly? In the shadowy stillness, she felt eyes watching her, though nothing moved. In that moment, every hair on her neck stood at attention. As she scrubbed the dishes, her mind raced. What awaited her in the depths of this restless night? Was the tapping a sign, a warning, or just the house settling? Could there be more to this midnight chore than she ever imagined? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With renewed determination, Maria turned back to the sink, and with each splash of water, a feeling of dread crept in. The swirling patterns in the foam seemed to take on a life of their own, beckoning her deeper into the mystery. It was just washing dishes, but suddenly, it felt like she was washing away the veil, pulling her toward the unknown. Did fate have something sinister in store for her, or would it lead her to a truth she never anticipated? The tapping grew louder, more insistent, begging for her attention. What would she uncover if she dared to look? The night was just beginning, and the answers were lurking, waiting just behind the shadows. The scratching sound became a persistent whisper, now joined by a faint rustle, unsettling Maria even further. She gripped a soapy plate tightly as she glanced toward the corner that seemed to pulse with life. Fear coiled in her stomach, twisting and tightening. What could possibly be hiding in the shadows? "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. The sound echoed back at her, mocking her courage, and for a moment, the only answer was the sound of water splashing against porcelain. With a shudder, she turned back to the dishes, trying to focus on the cold water and bubbles. The dishes needed her, and maybe, just maybe, she could push away her irrational fears. But the more she scrubbed, the more the scratching escalated into a distinct tapping, quick and repetitive. It pierced through the mundane task and gripped her heart with a cold fist. Something was there. With every pulse of the noise, time seemed to stretch. Her movement slowed, the world outside the kitchen fell away, and she felt utterly isolated, as if trapped in a moment of awakening that unspooled into eternity. Should she turn back? Should she risk never knowing? "Don't be a coward," she murmured to herself. The words hung in the humid air like a challenge. She took a deep breath and set down the plate. Slowly, she turned toward the other side of the kitchen, eyes narrowing against the dark. The tapping echoed again, now almost melodic, like a strange lullaby urging her to discover the truth. As she stepped closer, the hairs on her arms stood on end. The shadows thickened, and she could almost make out a shape, no, a figure in the gloom. Her pulse raced, and she felt the weight of every horror movie she had ever watched. "Okay, just a peek," she whispered, inching forward like a thief creeping under the cover of night. The kitchen felt like a different world, a dark, suspenseful version of the safe haven she'd known. Her heart thundered as she reached the corner and flicked the light switch. Then, in a flash of light, everything changed. The kitchen illuminated, revealing a stack of boxes piled high against the wall, each labeled with faded names. Items cluttered the surfaces: old pictures, trinkets, things that belonged to someone else. But it wasn't the items themselves that chilled her. It was a small, dusty journal that lay exposed on top. It radiated a sense of urgency, like it knew she would find it. Maria could feel the pull, the haunting call of the unknown. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, opening the worn cover. A scrawl of familiar handwriting jumped out at her, and she gasped. It was her late mother's writing, a connection to a past that had always felt just out of reach. With a racing heart, she absorbed the first sentences, breath hitching in her throat. Each word felt dangerously intimate, as if they were secrets kept far too long. But then, just as she began to grasp the weight of the revelations, a loud crash shattered the stillness. The sound came from deeper within the house, echoing through the hallways like a sinister promise of chaos. Maria's heart raced wildly, fear clawing its way back to the forefront of her mind. Did someone or something else lurk in the shadows beyond? In that moment, she knew she had a choice to make. Would she challenge the darkness, or retreat to the safety of the known? Before she could decide, the tapping returned, now louder and more insistent, blending with the crashing sound in a terrifying harmony. Little did Maria know, the choices before her weren't just about secrets, they could change the course of her life forever. As the echoes of the chaos seeped into her consciousness, Maria steeled herself. What if this was only the beginning? What lay ahead would either bind her to her past or free her from the shadows that haunted her. Maria's heart thundered in her chest, each beat resonating with the echo of the crash that had torn through her fragile bubble of unease. The old house creaked around her, every sound magnified in the silence left in the wake of chaos. She fought against the urge to flee, her mind racing through the possibilities. What if it was just something falling off a shelf? What if it was something far worse? Without thinking, she stepped deeper into the kitchen, past the boxes, her grasp tightening on her mother's journal. The old pages felt inexplicably heavy in her hands, laden with secrets, a map to the tangled history that came rushing back to her. The dim light flickered, casting shadows that danced ominously across the walls, and she dared to approach the doorway leading into the dark hallway beyond. "Hello?" She called out again, her voice wavering, swallowed by the void. Silence answered, thick and oppressive. Maria knew she had to choose: move forward, or retreat back to the safety of her routines. Yet the mysterious entry in the journal loomed over her, promising answers, urging her to unravel the past. Finally, drawing a shaky breath, she approached the hallway, the wooden floorboards creaking beneath her. Each step felt monumental, charged with tension. The sound had come from her mother's old room not too far away now. She could feel the air growing colder, a knowing chill that slithered down her spine. With each step, the tapping intensified, morphing into a series of knocks, urgent and demanding. The noise came from her mother's old closet, a large, antique wooden structure standing solemnly at the corner of the room. Its doors were slightly ajar, shadows pooling at the edges. Maria's pulse quickened as she edged closer. As she reached for the closet handle, the knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by a deafening silence that pressed against her ears. She paused, heart racing as fear gripped her throat. "Just a glance, just a peek," she whispered, pushing the door open with a creak that echoed in the stillness. The interior was dark, filled with whispers of memories, clothes draped loosely, shoes forgotten, and yet something felt peculiar. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind whooshed past her, and she staggered back as the door slammed shut behind her. Panic ignited in her veins, and she yanked at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "No! Let me out!" She cried out, adrenaline kicking in. With a fierce desperation, she pushed against the door, and as if the house held its breath, it swung open, revealing a room entirely different from the one she had known. It was filled with remnants of her mother's life, old letters, faded photographs, and the eerie presence of unseen eyes observing from every corner. Amongst the clutter, she spotted something peeking out from underneath a pile of clothes, a small, shimmering object. As she picked it up, her breath hitched in disbelief. It was a pendant, one she recognized from a photograph, a family heirloom long thought lost. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, woven with cautionary tales of spirits that dwelled in the past, guarding what was theirs. Before she could process what it all meant, a soft, melodic laughter wafted through the air, sweet and low, echoing her mother's voice. The weight of understanding fell heavy upon her. This wasn't just about unveiling past secrets, it felt like the house itself was awakening, ready to reveal something ancient and powerful. Driven by a force greater than fear, Maria took a step forward into the unknown, the pendant warm in her palm. What had she disturbed? And more importantly, what was calling her deeper into this familial labyrinth? The moment hung in balance, thick with the promise of revelations that could either shatter her understanding of her past or bind her to it forever. What lay ahead was a threshold of choice. Would she discover the truth her mother seemed to have hidden, or would the truth consume her entirely? Maria's heart pounded as the laughter faded into the shadows, leaving an eerie silence that felt like a stranglehold on her senses. The air around her thickened, crackling with unseen energy. The pendant's warmth spread through her fingers, pulsing like a heartbeat, a reminder that this moment was not an accident. It was purpose. Her gaze swept across the room, connecting with the countless eyes of her mother's past. Dusty frames held smiles frozen in time, and letters folded neatly on the desk whispered untold stories waiting to be unraveled. The treasure trove of memories beckoned her. Yet, apprehension gnawed at her, trying to pull her back from the edge of discovery. "Mom?" she called out, hesitating. The quivering syllables betrayed her. She half expected a reply, a reassurance that everything was just as it should be. Instead, the only response was the sound of her own breath and the rustling of forgotten pages. Compelled by a strange force, she wandered further into the room, the light from the window weak and despite the chill creeping into her bones. A strange gleam in the corner of the desk caught her attention. It was an old, leather-bound diary, much like her mother's but far more worn out, its edges frayed and marked by age. A fragile golden clasp held it shut, the clasp glimmered in the dim light, almost urging her to open it. Curiosity wrestled with fear, but Maria couldn't resist. She reached out and unclasped it, the sound like a soft sigh of relief. As the pages fluttered open, a wave of stale air surged in her direction, carrying the scent of lavender and memories. She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning hurriedly. The entries told a story of love, betrayal, and impossible choices, tales of a young woman once trapped by expectations but yearning to break free. And as she read, it felt like the ghosts of her ancestors were whispering directly into her mind. With each sentence, the lines blurred between her mother's life and her own. There was mention of a curse, a lingering shadow that haunted their family through generations. A mention of rituals and offerings that might keep the darkness at bay. Suddenly chills coursed over her skin, a shiver of foreboding warning her this was much larger than anything she had bargained for. "Maria." The soft voice was unmistakable, resonating like a melody strummed on a haunted guitar. Her stomach dropped as she spun toward the voice, but the room was empty. Sweat broke out on her brow, and she felt the walls lean in closer, the house itself moving with silent intention. "Who's there?" she choked out, her voice trembling. Then her eyes flicked back to the diary. An entry dated just days before her mother's last days caught her attention. Her heart lurched as she absorbed the words, "The pendant has awakened. I fear what it calls forth." Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Shadows elongated and twisted, merging and swirling. Maria felt suffocated, the weight of the house pressing on her chest. Her breath quickened and the edges of her vision blurred. Was it a warning? Had she summoned something? With one last desperate glance at the diary, Maria knew she had to act, to confront whatever darkness awaited her. The pendant felt heavier in her palm, as if it were whispering secrets meant only for her ears. The walls groaned in response, as if the house anticipated her decision, its secrets unraveling, revealing threads of fate that intertwined with her own. What would she find beyond the doorway of truth? A legacy to break or a darkness to face? Maria took a deep breath, her resolve firming. Amid the shadows, she whispered, "Show me," and then, from the depths of the house, a sound echoed low, ominous, and unmistakably alive. The shadows twitched and she felt the house shudder as a door to the unimaginable began to creak open. What would step forth into the light? Was she daring enough to find out? A chill gripped Maria's spine as she braced herself against the desk, the diary now clutched tightly in her hands. The low sound reverberated again, like the growl of a distant thunderstorm, and she instinctively took a step back. Each stitch of the air around her felt electric, charged with something dark and powerful, unsettling in its unpredictability. "Show me," she whispered again, a demand now almost lost amid the shadows swirling around her. The shadows morphed. First, they danced like smoke, their forms barely distinguishable. Then, abruptly, they congealed into a swirling mass, a thick fog rising from the floor, thickening like the night itself had come alive. Maria's heart raced, the familiarity of her surroundings twisting into something alien and sinister. "Go back," an echoing voice gasped, slipping between the folds of the shadows. "You don't want this." Her mind fought the surge of terror crashing over her like waves against rocks. "I have to know," she shouted, louder than she intended. But at her words, the figure grew clearer in the fog, an indistinct silhouette that shimmered with an ethereal glow. A face emerged, one she recognized, yet did not quite believe, her mother. "Mom?" Maria's voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. "Stop. You mustn't go any further." The figure reached toward her, an urgent motion that scattered shards of light across the gloom. The warmth of the pendant pulsed violently in her palm, numbing her fingers, urging her to listen, but curiosity clawed at her. What had her mother seen? What was this curse? "Why are you here?" Maria cried, desperate for answers. "What happened to you?" The apparition flickered, then solidified, urgency eclipsing the sadness in her mother's eyes. "The pendant, it holds the key but also the danger. If you open the door, you may not like what comes through," her mother warned, her tone fraught with pain. "What do you mean?" "I thought I could control it, but the darkness has its own will. It takes, it consumes," she said, her voice fading like the glow around her. "No!" Maria screamed. "Don't leave me." The shadows writhed and twisted violently in response, drowning the room in layers of darkness. The very air grew thick, palpable with energy, like a storm brewing. "Breathe, Maria." She steadied herself, reminding herself of what she had learned. Her mom had faced this, and so could she. A sudden clarity pierced the chaos. The diary, still warm in her grip, offered protection. "You're here for a reason too," she murmured to herself, feeling the weight of tradition and family wrapped around her like a blanket. With newfound determination, she raised the pendant in front of her. It began to vibrate, glowing with an inner light as the shadows elongated, twisting into shapes that reached for her. Then, with a jarring crack, the door she had sensed before burst open, revealing a narrow corridor that stretched far into the darkness, a threshold to the unknown. "Mother!" Maria shouted, her body shaking with realization and regret. Was it courage or recklessness that propelled her forward? She couldn't be certain. But the choice loomed before her, raw and immediate. "Tell me what to do," she cried, echoing off the walls, uncertain if she was talking to the shadows, the darkness, or the echo of her mother's spirit. As she took a tentative step toward that yawning void, the shadows surged around her, slithering like serpents. Each breath led in the darkness, and the corridor pulsed in response. Something was coming. Was it fate beckoning her to step forward, or doom waiting to entrap her for good? The air thickened with dread, and without thinking, Maria stepped into the darkness, ready to grasp whatever truth awaited her regardless of the cost. What awaited her on the other side? Would her mother's warnings echo true, or would she uncover a strength she never knew she possessed? The corridor swallowed Maria whole as she hesitated, her pulse thundering in her ears like a war drum. The shadows were alive, whispering her name, tugging her into the unknown like they craved her very essence. With the pendant igniting her path in a soft, eerie glow, she pressed forward, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. The air turned frigid. She could almost feel the whispers wrapping around her like chilling fingers, unsettling and faintly familiar. "What do you want from me?" she breathed, desperate for an answer that didn't come. Instead, the shadows seemed to thrum in response, pulsating with energy that brought a weight to her chest. As she stepped deeper into the corridor, the walls morphed, flickering against the faint light in constant flux, like memories trying to coalesce. Images snapped into view, her mother, joyous in her youth, a family gathering consumed by laughter, and then a flicker of something darker. There he was. That man. He stood behind her mother, casting a long shadow, his eyes glinting with a malevolence that paralyzed her. "Stop!" Maria cried, her voice bouncing off the walls, but the man grinned, mocking and twisted, and flooded her thoughts with an ominous whisper. "Don't you see, Maria? It was never the pendant. It's all about choice, a decision that binds you." She recoiled in fear, yet she couldn't tear her gaze away. "What do you want from me?" "Awareness, dear. Understand the legacy a little better," he taunted, his laughter echoing, threading itself into the shadows. "Your mother thought she could control it, but it controlled her. It's your turn now." An ice-cold wave of dread washed over her. Everything she had assumed was wrong. It wasn't about the pendant. It was about the darkness weaving its way through her bloodline, waiting to claim another soul. Could she escape it? The vision shifted. A frantic exchange between her mother and the man, filled with anguish. Desperation etched on her mother's face, painted with fear. Maria felt a pang, piercing and sharp, realizing her mother fought against something far greater than herself. The corridor expanded wider, now adorned with whispers that seemed to creep closer. "You belong here," they urged. "Why resist? You're destined for this." Maria shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "No. I want to let you take me. Yet, you've already taken the first step." His voice slinked around her, a predatory tone sent chills down her spine. With every ounce of will, she clutched the diary and the pendant tighter, forcing her voice through the fear. "I will not repeat your mistakes. I will fight." The shadow shrieked, a cacophony of rage and despair, swirling violently, throwing her off balance. But within that storm, she felt a spark ignite, a strength she'd never recognized. "I want to become what you are." Suddenly, the ground trembled as the pendant exploded with a blinding light, ripping through the shadows, carving a path ahead. In that moment, a new figure emerged, a woman, fierce and resilient, the powerful presence of her mother, standing strong against the darkness this time, pushing it back with sheer will. "Face it, Maria. This is your fight now." Maria's heart swelled with a mix of fear and courage. "I will do it for you, Mom." But as the shadows recoiled, something more sinister slithered forward, a darker force lurking just beyond the light. A final confrontation loomed on the horizon, promising both answers and dangers she could not yet comprehend. What awaited her in the heart of the darkness? Would she confront her lineage's true enemy or succumb to the chaos? The answers lay just ahead, waiting to be uncovered. The blinding light faded as quickly as it had surged, leaving Maria's surroundings dim and shrouded in uncertainty. Her heart raced, thrumming against her ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. The echo of her mother's powerful presence lingered, yet the shadows pulsed angrily, coiling tighter around her, ready to pull her back into their embrace. "Now the real game begins," the sinister voice whispered, dripping with malice as it crawled through the dark. Maria stood her ground, defiance pooling in her stomach. The fear was a familiar fire, stoking her resolve, but she also felt the weight of something darker, a creeping terror that she would lose everything. "Show yourself!" she shouted, her voice trembling yet fierce enough to cut through the oppressive gloom. To her horror, the man from her vision stepped into view, his shadow stretching like claws across the ground, taunting her. "You think mere bones and pale light can save you? You are tethered to your fate, dear girl. Your bloodline carries a curse, one that you can't outrun. Curses only hold power if you let them." Maria shot back, clutching the pendant as if it were a lifeline. "I choose what happens next." For a heartbeat, the shadows stilled, as if contemplating her declaration. Then they surged forward, swirling violently, engulfing her senses. She felt a pull, as though the darkness was clawing at her very essence, trying to reclaim what was lost. Memories flooded her mind, her mother's despair, the anger in the man's eyes, and the echoed plea of her family. Each image crashed into her defenses, threatening to shatter her resolve. "Stop!" she screamed, but with each utterance, the shadows amplified their force, pushing her closer to submission. She felt the chill consuming her, wrapping around her heart, squeezing harder, as if it wanted to crush her soul into dust. "Are you ready to join them?" The man sneered, his shadowy form twisting unnervingly, a predator reveling in its hunt. "You carry their weakness. It will be easy to reclaim you." Maria's throat tightened. She could not deny the truth lingering just out of reach. A part of her did feel weak, terrified that she would mirror her mother's fate. But another, fiercer part ignited, a fire born from love and defiance. "I will not be your puppet." The shadows recoiled at her words, hissing in rage, giving her a moment of extraordinary clarity. Images collided again, her mother, yes, but also the countless women before her. Each had fought, each had carved a path through despair. With every ounce of strength, Maria reached deep inside herself, feeling the ancient power she inherited crackle to life. As she embraced this force, the pendant heated against her chest, radiating warmth. The air shifted, vibrating with a new energy. "Let me show you!" Maria shouted, channeling the collective strength of her lineage into a single point. Light exploded from the pendant, cascading outwards, splintering the shadows and igniting her surroundings like a supernova. For the first time, Maria felt the threads of her ancestry weaving a tapestry of courage around her. She would not turn away from this fight, she would face the legacy head on. As the darkness split and howled, the man's mockery dissolved into frantic rage. "You think this changes anything? You cannot escape your destiny." But while the shadows writhed, Maria grasped the light, every ounce of her being focused on the truth. Perhaps she couldn't escape her legacy, but she could redefine it. The corridor trembled, the shadows receding as the light enveloped her. Just as she felt herself being lifted, another chilling realization struck. A deep, echoing laugh reverberated behind her, sending shivers down her spine. "Ah, but my dear, the password is just the beginning," the man hissed as she turned to confront him one last time. "You'll soon discover that darkness has many faces. And mine is only one." As the corridor spiraled into a vortex of light and shadow, Maria braced herself for the unknown, her heart racing with a mix of fear and determination. What awaited her when she stepped back into the chaos? Would she find answers or fall deeper into the darkness? The true battle was about to begin. The moment Maria emerged from the swirling chaos, she was thrust into a dimly lit forest. Tall trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. The air was thick with an uneasy silence that pressed against her, wrapping around her like a shroud. Heart pounding, she instinctively checked the pendant still warm against her chest. The light had faltered, but she could still feel its pulsing energy within her. "Where am I?" she whispered to herself, scanning the darkness. It felt almost alive, an entity watching and waiting. A chill ran down her spine as she began to walk, uneasily at first, before the instinct to survive urged her forward. Each crunch of fallen leaves made her flinch, even the quiet felt threatening. The faint echoes of the man's laughter reverberated in her mind, and doubt gnawed at her resolve. This was a primal world, the remnants of shadows tangling with fading daylight. "Stay focused, Maria," she whispered, her breath forming ghosts in the cold air. "You can do this." But as she ventured deeper, the eeriness of her surroundings morphed into haunting memories. She recalled her mother's tales, warnings buried beneath bedtime stories of strength and sacrifice. Those tales now felt like increasing weights on her shoulders. "Curses only hold power if you let them," she repeated, a mantra aimed at dispelling the fear coiling within her. A soft rustle made her pause. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice shaking yet fierce. The shadows stirred, and a figure stepped forward, icicles of moonlight glinting off dark hair. "You shouldn't be here," a woman's voice cut through the stillness, sending a jolt through Maria. The woman's wide eyes shone with an otherworldly glimmer, reflecting both curiosity and caution. Maria took a step back, her pulse racing. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who was once like you, a vessel of light trapped by the curse that binds us," she said, her voice soothing yet heavy with sorrow. "I am Eleanor. And they will come for you, just as they came for me." "Why? What do they want?" "The bloodline," Eleanor replied emphatically. "It's not just a curse. It contains power. They crave it, thrive on it. They'll stop at nothing to claim you." Confusion surged in Maria's mind. All these years, she thought her family's legacy was a burden. But now, understanding flickered. "I want to let them take me," she declared, fire igniting within her. Eleanor stepped closer, and the shadows thickened around them, swirling ominously. "You must understand, reality is not so simple. You have a choice. Embrace the light, or succumb to the darkness." Before Maria could respond, the ground trembled beneath them. Heavy footsteps echoed through the trees, and dread pooled in her gut. Shapes began to emerge, shadows morphing into figures clad in dark robes, their faces obscured. Eleanor's eyes widened in fear. "We don't have much time," she said urgently. "Trust your instincts. The light within you is a beacon. Use it or they will snuff it out. Tighten your grip on hope, Maria. You must." The connection snapped as the first figure lunged forward, a snarl ripping through the air. Maria's instincts kicked in, and she thrust her pendant forward as it began to pulse with brilliant light again. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if burned. But Maria realized that this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for something deeper. Would the surge of light be enough? "Stay back. I want to let you take what's mine," she shouted, hoping to find her voice above the chaos, but as the darkness converged, a chilling question echoed in her mind: was the light truly strong enough to shield her, or would fear and darkness prevail? The shapes closed in, and Maria steeled herself for the reckoning to come. What would she sacrifice to protect her legacy? The answer loomed on the brink of revelation, just out of reach. The figures rushed at her, cloaked in anger, their intentions carved in the shadows like malicious fangs. Raw fear surged through Maria as she braced herself. The radiant glow from her pendant pulsed powerfully, illuminating the darkness with each beat of her heart. She could feel the warmth spreading through her, steady and surging, a lifeline. "Embrace it, Maria." Eleanor's voice rang out through the chaos, grounding her as reality pressed against her. The first cloaked figure lunged, and instinct drove Maria to sidestep, raising the pendant in front of her. Light exploded from its core, showering everything in golden brilliance that momentarily blinded her attackers. They screeched, a primitive sound of despair that echoed off the trees, stumbling backward. "Keep moving," Eleanor urged, her voice now laced with urgency. The shadows were relentless, and for every step back they took, more emerged from the inky depths of the forest. Maria turned and ran, adrenaline thrumming through her veins. Each breath felt like fire, the echoes of the shadows nipped at her heels. She darted through the trees, branches clawing at her clothes like desperate hands. The pendant hung around her neck, its light flickering with each frantic step. Where do I go? She yelled into the night, anguish spilling from her. Follow the light. Just as she locked eyes with Eleanor's determined gaze, the ground trembled again, this time more violently. A thunderous roar broke through the silence, and the earth beneath her seemed to split in two. The trees groaned, and for an unsettling moment, Maria feared everything around her would collapse. Then, from the chasm that opened, a shadowy figure emerged, larger, darker, and more terrifying than the others. It moved with a grace that belied its bulk, an embodiment of darkness that devoured the light around it. Maria's heart sank. Her light felt small, almost insignificant against the tide of shadow. Don't lose hope. Eleanor's shout pulled her back, reminding her of her strength. Remember who you are. Who am I? The question haunted Maria like a ghost, but an unexpected flash of clarity struck her. She wasn't just a vessel or a victim. She was the culmination of countless stories of survival, a legacy clinging to life. The darkness crept closer, but Maria found her footing. With her free hand, she clenched her fist and raised it high as the pendant blazed brighter than before, almost blinding. No! The dark figure growled, its voice a gurgle of hatred laced with fear. You will not rob us of our rightful prize. Your light belongs to us. With renewed determination, she shouted, No! My light is mine. The burst of brilliance surged from her, enveloping the area in a stark glow. The shadow thrummed, disoriented as tendrils of darkness slipped and wriggled like worms retreating from the sun. Maria felt empowered, the anger and defiance feeding the strength of her light. You underestimate me. She roared, unleashing the force of her family's legacy. Yet, as the shadows writhed and recoiled, Maria noticed a chilling realization creeping into her mind. The darkness wasn't just an enemy, it had sentience, a familiarity that tugged at her memories. Wait, she breathed, her eyes widening in horror, but before she could piece it all together, the shadows lunged again, angrier, more desperate. They were relentless. Eleanor! Help me! Maria screamed, fear squeezing her throat. I can't hold it forever. Eleanor's voice was strained, struggling against the gravity of the encroaching darkness. Maria's hands trembled, her breath quickened. She had to act. But in that vulnerable instant, doubt flared in her mind. Was her light truly enough? As the gap between her and the darkness closed rapidly, one final realization dawned on her. What if the key to her survival wasn't just fighting the darkness, but confronting it? With time rapidly slipping away, she faced the shadows, ready to uncover the truth hidden in the dark. The answer might change everything, but was she ready to find out? As the darkness charged at her, Maria stood her ground, her heart racing. A flicker of fear coursed through her veins, but beneath it simmered a fierce determination. She remembered her mother, the journal, and Eleanor. Shadows had tangled themselves through generations, forcing her family to hide. But Maria was no longer a passive player. She was ready to rewrite the rules. Show me what you've got. She shouted defiantly, the pendant burning with her resolve. I'm not afraid of you. The dark figure halted, just for a heartbeat. The uncertainty carved through the darkness like a knife. Maria could see the flicker of hesitation behind its eyes, the way it recoiled from the brilliance of her light. She pressed forward, stepping into the realm of shadows where familiarity tread a thin line between terror and understanding. Your light cannot extinguish what is part of you. It shrieked, the voice echoing a million sorrows. Maria clenched her fists tighter, the pendant in one hand and her mother's legacy in the other. You think I want to erase you? She shouted back. I want to understand. You are part of me. I want to fight you. I will embrace you. A contemplative silence enveloped them, the air thick as tension draped like a shroud between Maria and the malevolence. The shadows flickered, weaving through the air as if to grasp her words. Embrace? It scoffed, half laughing, half threatening. You think acceptance is the answer? You don't know what you're asking for, girl. Oh, but I do. She shot back, feeling the warm pulse of her ancestors' courage coursing through her. I am Maria, daughter of the light, and I refuse to let your darkness define me. I will make my own choices, and I will break this cycle. As her words hung in electrified silence, the darkness hesitated, shifting in form but not retreating. Maria concentrated, searching within for the strength her lineage had always promised. Something profound stirred in the depths of her soul as the pendant grew hotter, illuminating truths buried far too long. With newfound certainty, she stepped closer, almost within reach of the looming figure. We are bound by blood and choices. I will not fear you, but I refuse to let you take me, or my children, or my family. We face you together. The dark figure rippled, almost shimmering with confusion. It loomed larger and seemed to quiver, threatened by her fearless declaration. Maria felt the shadows begin to unravel, pulling back instinctively from her blazing light. No! You cannot turn away from your fate. It howled, the angry scream echoed deep within the forest, resonating ominously. Oh yes, I can. Maria replied fiercely. I choose to live. I choose to love. I choose to face every part of who I am, the good and the broken. And with a roar that combined heartbreak and resolve, Maria released everything she had learned, all the stories entangled in her heart. The air crackled, her pendant glowing fiercely as a surge of brilliant light erupted from her soul, wrapping around her in a kaleidoscope of warmth, mapping out the paths not just of attack, but of healing and acceptance. The shadows writhed, shrieking in terror as the light bore down, illuminating long-hidden corners of pain. Maria stood her ground, calm and focused, refusing to falter. For a moment it felt as though the very fabric of reality was unraveling, shadows dissipating under the powerful radiance that poured forth from within her, and then, in a brilliant explosion of light, the darkness fractured. The forest lit up with beams of illumination, shimmering like a tapestry woven with all her family lines. Love blossomed where fear had once anchored them. What are you? The figure whimpered, some vestige of what it had been clung desperately, frightened. You cannot be. Yes, I can, Maria declared, and in that declaration, her truth rang clear. I am not just a product of your darkness. I am the light that refuses to be extinguished. With that acknowledgement, the pendant blazed a beam of light brighter than anything before, washing over the dark figure, enveloping it in warmth and acceptance. Slowly, the shadows diminished, the darkness dissolving into the very air around Maria, leaving only the clarity of love woven through her lineage. With the last remnants of anger extinguished, the darkness was gone, along with the sensation of dread. Exhausted but liberated, Maria felt tears stream down her cheeks. She let out a shaky breath, the forest around her shifting, the trees bathed in warmth and quietude. As the first rays of dawn broke through the canopy above, illuminating her path, Maria realized this was a new beginning, one where she embraced not just her heritage, but chose her future with all the love that had come from fighting the shadows. Eleanor appeared by her side, a soft smile gracing her face. You did it, Maria, she whispered, her voice a gentle caress. You broke the cycle. With renewed strength, Maria nodded, knowing she was no longer just her mother's daughter. She was a warrior of light, a beacon for generations to come. The shadows had been faced and conquered, and they would never dictate her story again. So, what's next? She asked Eleanor, her heart light. Now, we build. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, knowing the legacy of their past wasn't a curse, but a powerful story of survival and connection, a promise of hope for the future. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow our amazing community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Maria's journey. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. Let's keep this fire glowing together.